Hello everyone, this is Paddy. What you're about to listen to is an informal discussion about the Guided Fate Paradox, the new strategy title from Nippon Ichi, makers of such games as Disgaea and La Pucelle. Because we were so excited to get going, we forgot to actually record a proper intro. So my name is Paddy, I write reviews and make content for MKGaming.com. My friend is CJ, he writes for PlusXP and does much of the same that. We also record a podcast together called Twin Humanities, which is basically about Dark Souls. If you like us, check us out. We'll be sorting that out later. But as for now, please enjoy the show.
If we have some music from the Guided Fate Paradox.
Oh, that's good, because the opening intro music, I think is really good.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a beautiful sort of opening in of itself, I think. But,
yeah, it was quite an anime opening, but the music, until the girl started singing, was amazing. I thought it was still good once she'd started, but I preferred the bit just before she started singing.
Well, this kind of ties into one of my access points for the game. Really, it's that the designer of all the artwork is the same guy that designed the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, of which I'm a massive fan.
Oh.
I'm a humongous fan of Suzumiya, and for the uninitiated, it's about Haruhi Suzumiya is about a young girl who starts going to a school, and basically she's not interested in regular people. She wants to meet espers and aliens and ghosts and time travelers and that kind of stuff. And she sets up an after school club to investigate into these things, and ropes various people in across the school to start looking for these things with her, not realizing that the people that she's roped in are espers and aliens and time travelers, and it's fucking brilliant. It's really, really good. A superb first series, which was shown out of order in Japan on television. So people were going, what? That doesn't tie into the last episode. And then as things were going, oh my God, that then ties into that episode. They had a second series, which I don't know. People were torn about because there were 8 episodes called the Infinite Eight, and they were essentially Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
But with very small things changing in each episode, and it tested the patience of a lot of people. And then they went into a film, The Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, which was nothing short of outstanding. So really, really good film. So yeah, that was my access point, really. And part of the reason why the Guided Fate Paradox came to my attention in the first place, because I saw it on a gaming site and in the new releases and hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
And when I looked it up online, I saw the artist
you were like, okay,
behind
yeah.
Suzumiya and the team behind Disgaea. So
that's what sells it to me. Like, oh, okay, Disgaea, I like that game.
Well, that's why I said to you about basically because of Disgaea that you were a really big fan of the previous one. Plus, I'd not long since been playing
D2, hadn't you?
Yeah, the new Disgaea on PS3, and I really enjoyed it. Not so much the story in of itself, but the game itself I'd found really funny and really refreshing. So that's why I said to you, look, this is great, because we're both coming at it from 2 different angles, really. You from the super experienced Disgaea side of things, and me as a huge fan of Haruhi Suzumiya. So yeah, what did you think because we went into this with no hype, no expectations,
0 hype.
Yeah, just and that those are the only things that we knew individually, I guess, for the game. So what were your first thoughts when you booted it up?
Well, when I booted it up, I was expecting it to be pretty anime. Just from going by the box art, you look at it and think, this is going to be pretty anime, like Disgaea is, and I'm okay with that.
I'd just like to say as well, superb box art.
Yeah.
Really superb box art. There's so much. There's so many pieces of cover art nowadays where I look at it and just go, really? Or they're doing a BioShock Infinite and just aiming it towards a certain market. But that is a brilliant piece of box art. It's classic.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I came into it. I was expecting. What did I expect? I expected quite anime styling, but that's okay. I could deal with that because the guys that make it, Nippon Ichi or NIS, as I call them, NIS, they always make games that I find funny. Mm-hmm. And if you can make me laugh, I can overlook a lot of my prejudices. One of them being, admittedly, anime. I don't get on very well with it. I don't often sit down and think, I'm going to watch some maids now. I don't do that. It's not for me. But if you can make me laugh my head off, then I can, I can look over that. I can overlook that.
That's kind of compartmentalizing anime in a way. Because
it does a bit. I know.
Anime, you wouldn't. I mean, one of the great quote from Warren Ellis I saw years ago was, you wouldn't say, oh, I've read a nurse novel, so I hate books.
Yeah, that's true.
There's all kind of flavors out there, and
Oh yeah, no, and I appreciate a bit of Death Note, a bit of Cowboy Bebop. Like they're really good. I really like those. But the vast majority of, let's say, the popular stuff tends to be stuff that I look at and think, nah, you're right. It's the maid outfits mainly that does it for me. Like, no. It usually signifies something that I won't enjoy, and I have tried a few, and I tend to not enjoy them.
Well, that's not really the popular market. That's the niche market.
Yeah, not according to the internet sites I go on.
Yeah, but the internet is full of small people that can shout loudest.
Lots of niches of loud.
Probably us amongst them within our own sort of comfortable slipper socks of gaming and stuff. So yeah, in for a penny, in for a pound. But
exactly.
as a fan, I'd say that I can always find throughout any season that turns up on Crunchyroll or whatever, I can normally find about 6 shows which knock my socks off that aren't just good, are phenomenal, and the writing genuinely blows my mind. There's a sea of shite surrounding that, but it's negotiating your way through it and finding the good stuff, and the good stuff is definitely there. So, if you need recommendations, I will nudge.
Oh, thanks. But yeah, so you boot the game up. You pop it on, and I'll do a quick summary of the plot. I think
I can do that for you if you want, because I have it here.
You have it here. Okay, you go. It'd be my guest.
Let me see. Players take on the role of high school student Renya Kagurazaka, who has become a god by winning a lottery in a mall. Renya must travel through the copy world in order to effect changes in the original world and make people's wishes come true. But is there some other force at work?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
There is always another force at work. They ask the question.
In the less American trailer way and more JML man way, players take on the role of high school student Renya Karugasaka, who has become a god by winning the lottery in a mall. Renya must travel through the copy world in order to effect changes in the original world and make people's wishes come true. But is there some other force at work?
Yeah. So there is another force at work, clearly, because they asked the question, therefore there is one. It starts off, fairly like, hey, I'm just a high school kid. I'm really unlucky. He's made out to be a bit of the loser stereotype, a bit, I found. Yeah, quite a bit of a loser.
They do that in kind of quite a heartwarming way, though.
Oh, yeah, it's in a nice way. Like, he's a loser, but you like him.
But the dialogue is rather than it just being like, oh my God, I'm a loser. It's kind of, I've never won anything in the competition. I've, nothing particularly special happens to me. The voiceover is really well done, and I think that those lines when they're delivered, they make you go kind of like, all right then, yeah.
Yeah, you're interested at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you meet a Lilial, who's like a maid girl running this slot machine, and he says, "Why don't you have a go? Have a go!" And she basically bullies you into having a go.
Mm.
I like the bit of internal dialogue. He's like, a cute girl's telling me to do something. Maybe I should do it. Should I do it? Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, that kind of ties into something which threw me a little bit, but I'll pick up on that in a little while.
Yeah, I think it does highlight one of the things where it does take kind of 10 lines too many to get any point across.
I think really the thing that threw me at that point was it kind of the lead guy was sort of very, oh, it's a hot girl in the maid outfit, which maybe is the sort of thing that like a 17-year-old kid would say, but
Yeah.
still I kind of went like a bit, mm,
Uh, what am I getting into?
yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm glad we're on the same level there because I thought that too, and I thought, okay, strange. But you roll the ball and the yellow ball comes out, and she congratulates you and says you win, and you're like, oh, cool, I won. Oh, what did I win? You're now God.
Hmm.
And this was basically all I knew about the game. I knew you won the lottery and you became God. That was all I knew. And I'm like, okay, I'm God now. What?
This is a point where, because it has to be said, the game looks beautiful.
Oh yeah,
The,
definitely.
the the art style within those opening sequence, there's tons and tons of character, and they almost pixel artish sort of character designs, and something Nippon Ichi have always been very good at.
Mm.
But it looks sweet as anything on screen. But the thing that came to my mind within that point where it's like, oh, beautiful girl, there's kind of a misunderstanding, and a kid's been thrown into a romance and something far bigger than him, was something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is an anime called Are My Goddess, where a kid that's quite down on his luck rings up for a pizza and ends up misdialing and hitting a goddess hotline. And
As you do.
yeah, and this beautiful girl called Belle Dandy sort of comes to his door, and he calls her bluff, and basically she offers him one wish, and he says, "I want you to be my girlfriend forever." And there's generally kind of a degree of, sort of kooky things that happen from there, but a huge amount of kind of heart in there as well, something really sort of beautiful and warming, and also the movie that they made of it. Which kind of followed on from the manga and the anime series, is one of my top 5 movies of all time. It's got Steve Bloom out of Cowboy Bebop in there, and it's one of those where
Don't you mean Steve Bloom out of everything?
yeah, as it is now, yeah. But it's one of those where they take a premise and they just throw shed loads of ambition at it. It's got a new Uematsu soundtrack to it as well.
Yeah.
Uematsu and like the Prague Symphony Orchestra or something, and it's a really, really good anime. And there's one of my favorite ever lines in films in there when it looks like Belle Dandy's going to lose her memories, and hence all the time that she's been with Kaneki, I think his name is, and she says, "What if I forget all of our time together?" And he just looks at her and says, "Then I'll fall in love with you all over again." And it's like, even my super cold heart like just absolutely melts at that line. So yeah, that was kind of the elephant in the room at that point when I was playing, because it was even. I know this sort of thing goes across a lot of Japanese media where there's a misunderstanding and a beautiful girl and hijinks ensue, but I think because my heart was so close to that, to Oh My Goddess in particular, that was definitely in the room with me at that point.
Yeah. Oh, see, no, I related with the guy because, like, yeah, I don't win nothing. I ain't I don't win shit, man.
It's me with my rambling diatribe of romance and beauty. You're like, yeah, I don't win fuck all.
I ain't the stuff. No, I don't win nothing, man. I have to work for my living. God.
But there's a really cute line that she says in that with because he basically doesn't want to give the lottery ticket at first, and he says that he wants to give it to his sister, and she says to him that you've proved yourself by not. Most people would check to see if there's a ball in there in the first place, like because a little golden ball sort of rolls out, which means that he's won the lottery.
Yeah.
And she says that most people are just generally suspicious, and that they'll check the machine to see if it's legit, and that proves that he's an honest and trusting person. Which I thought, you've reeled me back in a little bit with that. That's quite nice.
And there's some incidental dialogue a bit later where you meet just one of the random guys that hangs around the home base, which we'll get to very soon, I promise. You just talk to him and he says, yeah, I tried to win that damn thing. I took out every ball except the winning ball, and it still wouldn't come out. And I thought that was kind of cool. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. But I think it's undoubtedly something that we will come close to. There's some really quirky stuff in here.
Definitely.
Which made a bit further down the line made me reevaluate my initial perceptions of it.
But anyway, so you win the lottery, you become God, and then you travel up to Celestia, which is in all the Disgaea Nippon Ichi games is sort of heaven. There's Celestia and the Netherworld, and Celestia is always heaven. So it makes me wonder: is it in the same universe? This could be.
Yeah, I kind of quite like the thought of it being just that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So you travel up and you find out what being God actually means, and what basically being God boils down to answering people's wishes, and people wish and they pray to God, and you answer their wishes, and the world keeps turning essentially. And you've got a whole host of angels that will help, like 6 or 7, I think. 7? Is it 7?
Many of
7. Yes.
Many of whom kind of have this kind of almost uncomfortable, incestual kind of nature between, are they sisters or are they, inverted commas, sisters?
Yeah.
And some of them are a bit darker than others. And there's a terrible line, another one that kind of pulled me out of it, where let me just grab his name again. Renya sort of sees, and there's one angel who's got long red hair.
I know exactly the line you're talking of already.
And he says those are Old Testament level tits or something like that. and I kind of went, what? And yet again, this may in fact we've mentioned this sort of within our chat before the game review here, but I often will shout at my screen or exclaim things. I did just do what, and it might be because it's aimed at a certain audience, and if you're a 17-year-old lad who's picking this up, that you may well have been thinking that anyway, but it still made me go, eh?
Yeah, I shouted for Laura to come in and have a look at the screen and say, look at this! Look what he just said! It was that was a line that I thought, whoa, they're saying tits now?
But Celestia looks great, and the characters are all fantastic, and there's almost like there's a tiny bit of animation as you introduced to the other angels, where they'll occupy kind of half of the screen, and most of the time that's involving doing a little curtsy, and it's really sweet. But he does note it on the other side of things when he meets the male angels.
Yeah,
he notes that one of them is incredibly handsome.
He's a handsome, beautiful man. I think
that's
the words. Yeah.
That he suddenly feels sort of insecure, whereas at first it was like, what am I doing here? I'm out of my depth. Oh my god, she's got huge boobs.
And what a pretty man.
Yeah. So I thought that was another one. Like my mood was going all over the place with this, just sort of trying to comprehend. I don't know, to pigeonhole a little bit what it was trying to do, or what it was going for, without realizing that it's trying to hit like a million different jazz notes.
Yeah.
Because the thing is as well that when what threw me a little bit at first was when they start telling you that when people wish, you can go into a machine which will process these wishes.
Yeah.
And that the doubts that people have, or that appear as creatures within this machine, and you then will go and sort of battle the creatures. And the battles are very. At first, I thought they were going to be similar to Disgaea's, but they're a little more kind of, a little bit more instinctive and a bit more. You know, you can punch things by jabbing a button rather than having to queue up a move. And I quite like the pace of that.
Yeah, this is what I liked about it. I mean, I was expecting Disgaea. I was expecting slow pace, take your time, stack your damage, take time, plan your moves one by one. And there is some of that in there, but it's not the sort of very static team one. Take your turn, you move all your men's, do your attacks, and then team two will attack you, and then you have a go as well. And I like that. I mean, I've spent close to 250, 300 hours in the world of Disgaea. I enjoy it. And I was expecting that from this, but it's a lot more, it's almost like an action strategy RPG.
Yeah.
Is what I'd call it. Yeah, and it's very, so in a turn, everything else in the world moves when you do a move. So if you move one square, or if you attack, or if you do a skill, then everything else in the world moves just after you go.
And you can kind of sneak up behind stuff as well.
Yeah.
There's points where they can see you and where they can't, rather than, and creatures will often sleep.
Yes.
And you've got a certain number of places that you can move around, but getting rid of all the creatures isn't the end of kind of that level. You can keep going around it, and new creatures will keep appearing at different levels, which means that you can, different places, which means that you can keep leveling up if you want to. Which is really interesting.
Yeah. The only limiter on that, because each dungeon has between 5 and 10 floors for the most part. Each dungeon, as you go through, you have an energy meter, which will slowly kind of tick down as you go. So you can't just stay there for 3 weeks.
And that's built on food, isn't it? It's not on the, because you've got a separate energy meter for the amount of damage that an enemy can do to you. But by pressing 2 of the buttons, you can heal yourself, but that will take away from kind of your body essence, and you have to eat an apple or something.
Essentially, you're making time pass quicker, because your health will regenerate all the time when you're playing, but literally at like one point per step.
Because there's apples in there, and there was something I had early on which is called something like a mighty beef.
Mega beefy.
Mega beefy, that was it. I was like, that's awesome. That's going to be like the equivalent of a Pikmin, where all of a sudden sort of cherries become like Cupid's grenade.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, mega beefy. I think you get super beefy a bit later. You can also pick up ointment. Pills, rotten apples, apple cores as well, which do literally restore 5% of your energy meter, which is god awful, but you pick it up and eat it straight away because there's no point just hanging on to it.
There's a thing when your energy gets down to 30%, you just hear, and it just comes up on screen, hungry.
You're hungry, which I like. I like that. So yeah,
there's a real panic though when you've not got any food left.
Yeah, it becomes, right, run for the end, go.
And eventually having to kind of stock up at a merchant before you go into battle to make sure you've got enough grub.
Yeah.
Especially on the harder levels.
Yeah, and this kind of ties in a bit with the way you actually level up in the game.
Which I thought was really good.
It's really good, and it's kind of taken from another game they made called ZHP. It was something hero something. Dark Death Evil Man versus Super Guy, I think.
What was it on?
It was on the PSP.
Oh, cool.
And it was basically, from what I've seen, what I've read, it's the same rough setup as this. It's the same kind of action RPG based thing. Apparently, this is essentially taking the mechanics of that and use them for its own. And the way you level up. So you enter a dungeon. You enter the first dungeon. You start at level 1. You fight your way through the dungeon. You level up as you go. You beat it. say at the end you're level 10 by the time you finish, you beat the dungeon, you go back home, you are now level 1 again.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you re-enter a new dungeon, your level always starts at that level 1 point, and you have to level up fresh, which sounds horrifying on the face of it, but as you play, you will gain what's called a total level. So as you earn 10 levels in this is 10 character levels in a location. They will wipe when you finish the area, but they will be added to your total level. And as that goes up, you will get small increases to your base statistics. In the same way, anyone who's played Disgaea, if you reduce your character to level 1, you can do a thing where you can level up for ages and ages and ages, and sort of restart your character at level 1, but with a much improved level 1 stat system. This is the same thing, but much faster. So you're not going into end game dungeons as pansy as you were at the start of the game.
And I do love that pace aspect because it adds a certain something to it, which is it doesn't take you out of the game. It's still considered, but there's a little contrast on the other side of it when you're in battle of like jab, 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 jab,
jab, shit, jab, chip, chit, jab.
But yeah, the taking your level and paring it down to level 1, and then that being a stronger level is really cool. But also, the attributes you can put from your experience into I don't know, becoming stronger within different abilities, and essentially leveling up in your own choosing.
Exactly. And one of the other key ways in which that you would level up in the game is the item system. Now, as you progress, you will pick up piles and piles and piles of gear, be that weapons, trousers, hats, whatever.
Let's go into this as well, because
okay,
the fact that it doesn't see the one uniform style that it has is all the styles.
Yeah.
I adore, and the fact that you can be going along and you will essentially pick up like leggings, and you think, and they look like, and the little icons that you see before you equip them, they look like knight's leggings, and you put them on, and they're essentially army trousers.
Yeah.
Or an army helmet. Or my favourite one thus far is the kind of the death car, which is essentially like a go-kart that you put around your waist that your legs still stick out of the bottom of, but it's just got like teeth and a face on the lights.
Yep. I like the death car. I'd like to counter with my own favourite.
Okay.
My own absolute favourite items. I've actually got two.
Okay.
My first favourite is the tuna head. Which is basically a fish head, and you put it on like a helmet, and it just makes you look like you're wearing the head of a giant fish. It's ridiculous, and
it's almost the degree of kind of Monty Python that it kicks into it, and I love this silliness, and it really opened up for the fact of like, what are you going for?
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going for, and I can't say that I can remember a game throwing me off balance with its tone as much as this continually does.
It really does seesaw. But my second favourite item, which is, I went back to it time and time and time again, and always made a point of keeping one on me, was the tank trousers, where you basically sit in a tiny tank. And the special ability that comes along with it is called Tank Drop. And Laura, my missus, will attest that I sat on my sofa screaming, "Hit that motherfucker with a tank drop!" at basically every enemy.
I'm not the only person that screams at the screen. This is a wonderful thing. I like to think that I'm a calm and reassured man, but there are points where I just have to go for it.
God, I took the tank drop thing. I was like, this is an interesting puzzle. What should I... Tank drop! On everything.
But it's rare that a strategy game that's in the way that your Disgaeas are, because it's often considered, you sit back and you go, right, this is my terrain, I'm going to move you to there, and then you can attack, and then I'll double round the back on this. The sort of Guided Fate paradox really does sort of throw in that almost an actionist and a button mashing and a kind of shouty element to it, rather than having to sit back and relax and maybe have a bit of a giggle when the action commences after you've told the game that it can enact the things that you've told it to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously for most of the time, but I find when it does go seriously, you care more.
This was what took me off guard, and
Mm.
this was easily my favorite part of the game. Like when they were talking about the guided fate paradox, which is the machine that you go into to
That's the
uh
Fate Revolution circuit.
that's it, the Fate
Yeah.
Revolution circuit, that's it. There's one line that's almost thrown out there casually where it said that someone committed suicide for you to be able to affect somebody else's life and be able to do this.
Mm.
And I kind of went, and this was one of those. This was the point where I've gone through a bit of it, and I'm enjoying the action. I'm enjoying the visuals and the
Mm.
quirky, pants and helmets and death cars and all that kind of stuff. And I went, what?
What? Yeah.
And then it threw me again that because you do stuff in a world of where you'll battle these monsters, and then you'll have the copy world, and it will show how the things that you've destroyed,
Mm.
and which are the fears and
The
uh
doubts.
yeah, and the doubts of the person that's been praying to you, how they've affected kind of the world that you're trying to affect. But it will show the copy world as a series of silhouettes, often colored by maybe clothes or wigs and stuff.
Yeah, so like a
Um,
defining feature on the person, and
yeah.
otherwise just a black frame. Yeah.
But what threw me was the tale that it shows initially is Cinderella,
Hmm.
and the initial dialogue is the fact that she's wanting kind of a burning, wonderful romance. But at this point, she is Cinderella, and she doesn't want to be with the prince that she's with,
Mm.
and she's self-aware that she's having to go through her own story time and time again.
Yeah.
That she's going to have to tell that story and be a part of that story every time that it happens.
Deal with
And
the ugly sisters
yeah,
again
and,
and again and again and again.
and when you sort of see the copy world and these silhouettes of the sisters, they're beating her.
Mm.
And when she wants to change that, when she wants it to be something different. So you're like Renya in the real world. He's like, well, why would you change a fairy tale? Fairy
Mm.
tale is a fairy tale. Loads of people love it and are inspired by it. And she rationalizes to the prince of what's inspiring about the tale of Cinderella. This is a girl that's continually put down upon. That essentially is your tale of looking for a bride. This is all Cinderella is that um, uh, that I'm somehow prettied up and I'm accepted as your bride. It's your
Mm.
tale. Would you? There was a great bit where she said, "If you'd have seen me as poor as I am, and in the clothes that I'm in, would you even have looked twice at me? Would I have been your bride then?" And
Mm.
I'm thinking, this is this is superbly meta. This is all of a sudden it starts like pulling apart the fairy tale, but not in a way that rids it of its majesty at all.
Mm.
It starts becoming in the same way as we've gone, about the boob jokes and the maid sort of line, the maid sort of stuff early on.
Mm.
All of a sudden, we're kind of going, God, this is a woman that's on her knees. She's beaten by her, and that's not played for laughs, is it? The
No,
bit
no,
where it's beaten with the sister, and even when they give her the ticket to the ball, it was like, oh, what's she going to wear? Even if she does go, oh, you're so kind, sister, and it's actually played in like a really,
really mean and
really vile way.
mm.
And it fascinated me that it pulled that card, and
Mm.
every time you go into the machine and you're obviously getting a brand new set of prayers from Cinderella. The things that you're enacting are deconstructing the fairy tale, but are possibly building a life for somebody that's thrown into something, a Groundhog Day that they're constantly having to relive,
Mm.
that they hate, that they feel is I don't know, compartmentalizing them and is uh, degrading to them.
Yeah.
And and yet even in those moments there are little quirks of humor, like when the fairy godmother turns up and she calls herself a wonderful old hag, and when
Yeah.
Cinderella calls her wonderful, you're not allowed to use those. Only I can say that about myself. And and this, the fact that it's doing all of these quirky things, and it's at this point it's not wanting to level off. It's not saying, well, now we've thrown these things at you, this is where we are. It's content for all of those things to be this glorious, wonderful cake for you to smash your face in, for you to whip your tongue around your face and lick the cake off and go, this is great. But also to kind of go like, it's a strange one. I really love it. I love what it's doing.
And I think I like what I liked about the various wishes, because each kind of level is a wish.
Yeah.
Different person. What I like about the different wishes is they're all kind of unique, and they all explore a lot of different ideas. Whether or not, I mean, I find some of them end a bit too quickly, and you don't get quite the resolution that I find. They kind of finish and move on to the next one, which is they're a little bit short for me. I find they could have gone a bit longer.
That's because you're so engaged, and that's the way they've kind of set things up. And I think,
yeah, I want a bit more from them. Yeah,
have thrown you off kilter.
And it's worth actually noting the kind of in the first couple of levels, you've got Cinderella. The next level is a wimpy zombie that cries the whole time and just wants to eat a human, but is scared of humans. And you've got to help a zombie, which is weird. You've got a mermaid who hates men. You've got some mythical book librarian people who love books loads. And their wish is to, help people read books, but that kind of backfires. But that's going too far. But they're not just content to go with, right, okay, we're going to do a serious wish for a serious person. It's all going to be serious. Like they will throw a weird idea out, like the zombie. That was the one I was like, what? We are answering the prayer of the zombie?
I honestly can't think of a game that's got this much unabashed creativity and contrast in it, where it's essentially the rocky road of games. Because the rocky road is a cake where it's almost like they've got a child and they go, what do you want in it? Like, I want marshmallows, I don't want raisins, I don't want peanuts, I don't want chocolate, I don't want a Harry jump jet, I don't want Smarties to pour out the tears of clown, and just everything's in the rocky road.
I don't want a fish hat on it.
Yeah, and some combat moves. But that's genuinely what this game feels like, and I had this kind of degree of giddiness playing it. This real almost nervousness, but delighting in every single time that I didn't know what it was going to do, and then it threw something that I completely didn't expect at me.
Yeah. And I think while we're talking about the plot, it's probably a good time to bring up one of the problems I have with it, and one of the things that
no true spoilers.
No spoilers. There will be no spoilers here. This is a no spoiler zone as far as we could try. One of the things that killed it for me. Okay, so you go into your level, and each level's made of 5 dungeons. You'll spend maybe 2 minutes going through a level. You will then spend 5 minutes watching a cutscene. You will then do another minute in another level. You will then spend another 5 minutes watching another cutscene. And I was sat there for an hour, and I maybe played the game for all of 10 minutes total. And while it was enjoyable, and while I was enjoying seeing the plot, play out, I was sort of looking at the clock thinking, I can't keep playing this for much longer. I've got to go to bed.
It is very kind of PS1 in that regard.
They just talk.
We all remember like playing Final Fantasy and going, I'll just go to the next save point, and then it's like 2 a.m. and you're seeing Balam Garden rise, and you're like, oh my god! And part of you's like, this is a spectacle I've waited for, and the other half of you is like, I'm going to die.
Please don't let me die. I'm going to lose my progress.
Because I'd say, from the start of the game through to the first save point, or I think it's probably there when you reach Celestia, but I didn't go for it.
The first point where you can save, you can just do it straight from the menu in Celestia whenever you want.
Yeah, it is a long time.
Yeah,
you have to have a decent amount of time committed, and that's There's part of me that thinks that, and I thought this with D2 as well, that whilst it's nice seeing this on the big screen, I'd have loved to have seen this on the Vita.
God, yeah, so much. And I don't like to port beg because I talk about the Vita all the time and I want every game on the Vita. But this is exactly the kind of game that I would play for hours on the Vita. Because I bought Disgaea, the first one, on PS2 and I played it for like 5 hours. But I thought, I'm sitting on my sofa, I could be playing Tekken with the guys now, it's fun. I got it on the PSP just as a whim because I thought I enjoyed that, and like I think I didn't take it out of my PSP for about 2 months.
I remember you saying you were super glued to that.
I got stuck to it, and I just could not stop playing it. It was perfect, and this would be exactly the kind of thing because once you've gotten out of the way of the cutscenes, if you replay a level, you just play the gameplay, so you can whiz through a level in about 10 minutes, which is perfect, and it takes on an almost roguelike aspect. Because you're going in and you're trying out different gear each time, and you're whizzing through, trying to level up, abilities and trying things out. It almost takes on this kind of 10-minute bash out a bit, levels add to your total level. That'll eventually pay off later.
Yeah.
And you're earning, you're doing something positive in a short 10-minute gap, which I don't feel like you can do that in the story missions. You need to give it an hour before you start a wish because you're gonna take an hour.
I think there's pros and cons to that as well, within the fact that because you do have to set such a large amount of time aside, that the story really has time to sort of
go deep.
Get its hooks in you, and
it does a deep dive, and it feels like you're watching episodes of something. Like it plays out like a TV show almost. You're watching an episode.
Yeah, I'd almost say it feels like you're watching it, like a movie or something, as opposed to, if you were on Vita and you could do a bit and you maybe do like a, force switch shutdown and stuff, and then sort of leap straight back into it. Maybe on the other side of that, I don't think it's inconsiderable to think that you might lose a degree of momentum.
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
because it is more story heavy than Disgaea, and I mean,
because I think that the reason for that is because you're doing a dive on a different wish is each like level of the game. You're meeting a clutch of different characters each time. They've got to introduce them and get the backstory and find out their motivations, and it does take time to get through all that.
But with Disgaea, I found that I found the game itself very funny. But the cutscenes and the stuff beyond that, I found a bit painful. It was very schlocky and very. It wasn't my sense of humor at all.
From what I've read about it, because I haven't played D2 yet, Disgaea D2, which is the kind of the.
It's the true sequel, isn't it?
The true sequel, yeah. It uses all the same characters as Disgaea 1. Disgaea 1, from what I know, has the much better story mode, and it's much more amusing as well.
Because this one is, I'd say, is more story intensive. But the only thing that I really struggled with the Guided Fate Paradox was the controls a little bit, because they're a bit off the wall. There's a lot of, you've got your normal stuff that you'd imagine for bringing up menus and stuff, but certain menus are brought up with the left stick. Certain menus are brought up with different directions on the right stick, and in Celestia, sort of hub world, you can move around the screen with the left stick, but when you're actually in the machine, you're using the D-pad. And a lot of the time, to go straight on is two different directions. You're kind of holding up and left, for example. And I think that sometimes when you're trying to get in behind a monster to attack it, it can be a little fiddly as to kind of which combination you need to do to get in behind it. And whilst on Disgaea, you're obviously just using the sticks to select a place that you're going to walk to, because you're controlling the character within the actuality. Oftentimes I've wanted to get to somewhere and I was looking down at the pad and thinking, is it this now? And oftentimes it isn't just a kind of up, down, left or right. It is a it is a direction, a diagonal, isn't it?
Yeah.
To get down.
You have to get used to the way you have your pad set up. And you can choose it to be up is left or up is right, but you have to work out which one you want to use, change it immediately, and never touch it again. Because it will confuse the crap out of you when you've forgotten, shit, what did I pick us up?
Yeah.
Was it left or right? Damn. And then you inevitably will always pick the wrong one.
I think the other side of that, though, is that it pales into insignificance at the side of it constantly gives you new toys to play with.
Yeah, and this is something we skipped over actually when we mentioned the items earlier. This is one of the main ways that your abilities and skills will increase, other than leveling up, is with the items. So as you go through, you'll pick up all these items like your tank legs and your fish faces, and your crazy arm made of eyes, which is another personal favourite. And as you fight with them, they will level up to what's called burst. And the burst mechanic is actually kind of cool. When it levels up, it bursts, and when it bursts, you get an item you can use to increase your stats later on, which we'll go into later. So bursting items is good because it makes you stronger in the long run. But when the item has then bursted, it then becomes much less useful. The stats on it drop like half what they were initially, which encourages you to then switch it out and try something else, which is kind of cool. I like, and it actively encourages you, mix your gear around. Don't just stick with one. Try out everything. Enjoy all of these things we have given you. Try it out. And each bit of kit comes with its own special attack as well. So your arm, your weapons, your hat, your legs will all have their own attack with their own areas they will hit. So you're constantly trying different bits of kit out, thinking, right, well, this can attack diagonally, this one can attack just behind me, this one can attack over there. And it does encourage you to look at the way the stuff you're putting on and to experiment and think, right, okay, well, I have that hat, I can attack in front of me, I put those trousers on, I can do that.
But it also gives you stuff like that you can dual sort of two-hand weapons as well. Like you can have like a dagger in one hand and a sort of spiked ball in the other and stuff. But also it will give you a shield that you can defend on and do need with certain enemies as well, especially on the harder levels to not just think of going in there and twatting things like a madman, but also I don't know, think it then encourages you to almost take a step back and think strategically with what you're taking on.
Yeah. But once the items has burst, they're not then completely useless, because what you can do then is you can go back to your hub. You can sell them for a pretty penny once they've burst, or you can upgrade them. And what upgrading does is it basically resets the burst status back to 0, and it improves the weapon. So you can keep bursting it and upgrading it, and bursting it and upgrading it, and the item itself will get stronger and stronger. And the bonuses you get will get better and better and better, which is great, apart from one thing.
Go on.
This is the point when I got angry with the game, and this is where I started to lose it with the game a bit, and this is where it took the downturn for me.
Mm-hmm. This is the difficulty spike, isn't it?
This is the difficulty spike. This is the failure penalty, basically. So you can spend hours. For example, my tank drop that I like so much. I had my tank legs. I'd leveled them up about 5 times. They were really strong. I was loving it. I was like, yeah, tank drop everything. Yeah. And I went into a level and I cocked it up. I made the wrong move and I died. I was like, oh, damn, in the middle of the level. And it kicks you back to the hub. Like, you don't get a game over. It kicks you back to the hub with some caveats. You go out to the hub. Every single item you have on is gone for good. Every single item you had in your item bag is gone for good. And half of your cash is gone for good. I was a little bit upset, shall we say, that I'd lost all of this gear that I've been working on, and I'd leveled it all up a bit, and I was, really having fun with it, and it was all gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. I was incandescent with fury.
Do you think that this is a way that they've artificially extended the length of the game?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, it seems unnecessarily harsh. Like, losing half your cash, okay, that's a reasonable kind of penalty for failing a level and losing half the dosh you've made up, because you earn cash at a pretty good rate here.
Mm-hmm.
But to lose every item that you have on, and every single item in your bag as well, is shocking, because you will be carrying around in your bag anywhere between 20 to 25 items it will hold when you're in a level. And you can't jump out of the level, dump them off and come back. You've got to get to the end of the level before you can dump back at the base. So you're probably carrying a good fair bit of gear that you've picked up over the course of the game. And if you cock up once, it's gone. And you do get items that you can use to... There's an exit item you can use to tag out if, it's all going a bit south. Later on in the game, you get... Once you've died a couple of times, you get something called the Divine Summon, where you can set some gear to use that is always safe. And you can summon your special gear in, and you will use that special gear and level that special gear up. And if you do die, you'll lose everything except that special gear, which kind of nulls the blow a bit. But when you're trying to kind of take your gear and level it up and, make it stronger, and by leveling it up, making your items stronger, the items you get for bursting it get better. So there is a reason to be using the same gear over and over and over again. And you slip up once and it's all gone, and you are back to square one with not even the cash to afford new gear. And at one point, I was trying not to save scum. Like, when you die, like save load, like, I was really trying not to do it. But I got to a point where I had maybe the gear that I had on was all I had left. And I was going into, I think it was the 3rd level, which is the one with the mermaids in it. And I was dying on the first room of the dungeon every time, because, again, you start at level 1. Like, you are a pansy when you first go in. Even if you've upgraded your stats, you're still a bit of a pansy for a while. And you spawn in, and there are 5 enemies around you, and you immediately die, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it just felt like the game was cheating. Like, it was breaking its own rules. It was saying, nope, fuck you. And that's when I started to sour on it a bit, and I couldn't get past it. Like, I couldn't get over that feeling that the game was cheating.
Do you think that this is a point where they maybe, rather than running with all the ideas that they got, that they kind of over-egged the pudding a little bit? That they they thought, we need something else, or will Disgaea fans sort of find this too easy, or do we need a gameplay twist in proceedings to keep people sort of plugging along? Because it has to be said, I mean, the stuff that I played of NIS's America's stuff, they're not for the faint of heart.
No.
They might lead you in slowly with jolly complexities, but they do kind of have this thing whereby if you're spending 30 quid, you may well kind of be playing it for a long time. And it's something that I wrote in an article recently on Armored Core, within the fact that there are a lot of calls in the media to be in and out of the game within 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever. But when we were younger, we wouldn't have that much money. We wouldn't, games weren't as interchangeable as we're lucky enough for them to be now.
Yeah.
And you borrow your friends' games and stuff because you'd lend them between you, because otherwise you wouldn't see games that you wouldn't ordinarily play. And I think that something that you can pick up and might genuinely have to really pour yourself into to best and master is worth 30 quid. And I see what you're saying with regards to I mean, we've got an agreement that there's seemingly an extension of the length of the game by putting in the twists, which is unfair. But there's a portion of people who will look to that and just go, yeah, come on then. And there's a portion of people that sadly will put the game down and never touch it.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that there's also, for those people who can't afford a lot, and maybe this is something that, whether they're a Suzumiya fan or a Disgaea fan, will come into it knowing what they're getting, and within a decent amount of value, but knowing that there's a challenge in there, and perhaps perhaps if they're as taken by the story and the mechanics of the game as we are, that if they've got tons of time on their hands, they'll keep coming back at it. They'll best it. They'll find ways that perhaps you and I haven't thus far for overcoming those, and see stuff that we haven't thus far. But
Yeah.
it's a strange dichotomy as to which is the true answer on that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I don't have words, man.
But I think it's. I think to put into perspective as to kind of bookend the start of our chat, this is a game that I didn't see promoted anywhere. I didn't see reviewed anywhere, and the only place that I saw it was going on to a site that sells video games. It's on the Game Collection. It was on the new releases stuff, and I looked at it and went, "What?" And I like to think that I kind of know my video games fairly well with what's coming out and different bits and bobs. And if I'd have seen an article that had said the artist of Suzumiya and the people from Disgaea, I'd have gone, "Oh, cool! I'll keep an eye out for that."
Yeah.
I had heard nothing, absolutely nothing about this game. And to say that there's so much imagination in there, and there are so many quirks, and that there's some quite meta stuff, there's some quite serious stuff, but also this real level of kind of Monty Python and anime and general off the wall stuff, to have all of that kind of firing all over the place is great. And I want more people to play it, because I think they may well not only enjoy it as much as we have, but kind of find something that's quite a bit different to the games that they've already got in their collection.
But my personal feelings start with Disgaea. If that's what you're looking for, start with Disgaea. Not that it's cute and it's charming and it made me laugh, but it made me angry. And I cannot get past that. It made me furious. And I try and play games now, like, if I cock up, I live with it. Like, I try not to save scum. And one or two times, I had to, nope, save load. There was one, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. So as you're going through the levels, occasionally you'll encounter a special room where usually is a shop. Like special items, you can go in, you can, pick stuff up and buy it. And the way you buy and sell things is by picking them up and dropping them from your inventory. I picked a thing up because I didn't recognise it. Like, oh, it's a gear of some sort. I don't want this. And I dropped it back on the floor, and I went to leave, and there was an enemy blocking the door going, "Hey, did you want to buy that?" And I was like, no. I didn't have the money for it, and I didn't want to buy it. I was like, no, but I've already dropped it. And he didn't move. And he was literally blocking the door. I was like, okay, do I need to talk to the guy in the middle? And I went over and talked to the guy in the middle and says, "Oh, yep, okay, hi, welcome to the shop." Like, okay. Went and talked to the doorway guy again. Nothing. Tried picking the item up, talking to him again. Didn't work. I had to attack the shopkeeper to get out. And I died in a single hit because he was like 15 levels above where you are. And I died in a single hit. And I sat there and I pointed at my screen. And I went, "You cheated, game. You cheated. That was unwinnable." There was no way out of that. And I was so mad. I had to turn the game off for the night. I was furious at the damn thing. And that's what annoys me about it. Everything I like about it, it's fun and I'm enjoying it. And I want to see what happens next with the wishes. But then it's like, you died, you've lost everything, start again, loser. It's heartbreaking. R.I.P. Tank Drop Mark 1. You were my favourite. And it's worse because there's a shop in the main hub where you can rename your items.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I'd called it Tank Drop.
And it does encourage you to name them after your friends and personalise them as well. It's not like an XCOM thing where people are saying, don't name the characters after your friends because it's quite heartbreaking when they go. It's like, no, name everything after your friends.
Always name after friends.
Yeah.
I think the first item I renamed in this was I found a boxing glove. I called it Mr. Punchy. Mr. Punch.
There's what is Disgaea D2? There was you could create characters and name them, but the names that they were coming up that you could choose from were like far and above like anything I know there was a fighter that I created in Disgaea called who they wanted to name Rage Cage, and I was like, there is no way that I'm deviating from Rage Cage. That's just awesome. And there was another one. There was a magician. I'm gonna have to bring up my review of it. Just 1 minute. There
While
was
you're
a
doing that, the Disgaea games have always done good random names. Like I'll sit there and I'll just hit the button a couple of times, like, yep, perfect, done, moving on.
it was genius, and I'd sort of set up this magician. Let me find this name because it was just superb. Um,
I'm on tenterhooks. The
it's
people need
worth
to know.
it.
The people need to wait. To need a drum roll. We can fill with a drum roll.
I may well be. What was that? Was that Daniel? Oh, here we go. Yeah, this was it. You know what my magician was called?
Do
What
it.
they called my magician? Safari James. That was like that. Honestly, I wouldn't have even come near that. A magician called Safari James is just godlike.
You're sold.
Yep, and Rage Cage for my fighter. But they were giving you all these names, and literally all of them were great. And I was
Yeah.
just thinking, what Safari James is the sort of if a magician walked into the room and like, I am Lanengalt from the land of yeah, you'd be like, yeah, I know what I'm getting into.
I am Blood Talon the Dark.
Yeah, if a magician walked into something in a fancy like, I am Safari James, and what?
Reminds me actually, when I was at uni, one of our tasks was to design game characters, and one group of students came up with a cowboy. He was called Johnny Disco. And it was like, that's a brilliant name. Like I think they independently thought of the name and what he was.
Mhm.
And like, Johnny Disco, oh yeah, he's a cowboy. Like, oh, okay.
Fair enough.
It's stuck. And once you've named it, that's it. It's done forever. But yeah, it's the humour, it's the charm, it's the little nuances in the animation. It's the fact that every bit of gear that your character puts on is like you see them on them.
Yeah, I'm quite taken with it, and even with the difficulty spike, it's something that I'm intrigued to know more about and to see if I can overcome. And I genuinely hope I can, because I like ringing the bell for these sort of games because they don't tend to get that much attention in the the mainstream media, but the quirks and the longevity that's there, perhaps the overly increased longevity as we've touched upon, I think is worth having in your collection.
I think it would be. I hate to say this, but I think it's a try before you buy. I really do. Like, I think you're either going to click with it or you're not.
You know something? If they had a demo on the PSN store,
Stick a demo up.
which was the opening Cinderella story.
Yeah.
People might
even
say
the first half of it would be it because that's a good hour.
yeah.
Yeah.
A chunk of that. I think it would show everything that the game is doing. It would show sort of the really unusual sort of dark side of things, the really serious examination of like fairy tales and stuff, and the undercurrents there, but the humor, just how gosh darn gorgeous it looks. And I think it'd get under people's skins as well, especially if even if NAS put that demo up on a week after Christmas when there was nothing on, and there's a decent degree of people that will play demos because they can't afford games.
Download all the demos, try them.
Yeah.
All. That's what I used to do. I used to download literally every demo from the PlayStation Store.
Seriously, not judging that at all. Because we've all been in sort of but you and I have both been out of work within
Totally.
The last couple of years for a stretch. So but yeah, I just think it may well capture a few folks and sort of throw them the degree of quirk that we found. So.
Absolutely, but always be aware that it may kick you in the feels. So, both in a story way and in an oh my god, my tank.
So what we've been trying to do with this is do a review that's little bit different because, as well as us both doing Twin Humanities together, I write for PlusXP.com. Paddy writes for MKGaming.com. So what we're going to do is from here, we're going to write a conclusion on our final thoughts and then put a score on each site. So if this is on YouTube, we'll link to each site so you can bounce and see our final conclusions on the game. If you're reading this on say PlusXP and you want to see what Paddy's done, we'll link the other review and MK will link to PlusXP. So not only is it a bit of a bounce between the podcasts and traffic between the two sites, but hopefully maybe a few new bookmarks as well. So
it's worth noting that my review is actually already up.
Oh, you devious beast!
But we can edit. It's fine. My review's done. I was at my review point a while ago, and I was they were asking where it was, so it's okay. I'll write it now. My review will be up, but the edits that we have suggested will be made.
Cool. Right, so if you have been listening, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll be up for doing this again because it's been possibly a deeper discussion than we normally get in our own heads when writing the review, because we've bounced experiences and stuff sort of off one another, and I've enjoyed it a lot. So
yeah, me too. It's been an interesting review smackdown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can we call it that? Can we call it the review smackdown? I feel like that's maybe too much.
Yeah, it sounds a bit too harsh.
We'll work on that. We'll get back to you. We'll work on it, and we'll get back to you.
Think of something
better.
A quiche that is perfect. I don't know.
I've got nothing. Well, anyway, thank you very much for listening. We do appreciate it. As always, go check out PlusXP for the things that he says, and MKGaming for the things I say. Thank you very much. And
Twin Humanities for the things that we both say.
Yeah, the things
Dark
that
Souls.
we both say about Dark Souls. twinhumanitiespodcast.tumblr.com.
And we may have a different announcement on that front in the coming weeks.
Yay! Aren't we cool? Don't we do a lot of things now?
Yeah, it's good. The thing is, though, if we don't record this kind of gubbins, we just end up talking about it anyway. So it's therapy.
Therapeutic. It is. Game therapy. Yeah. Thank you
we
for
haven't
listening.
spoken for about 3 weeks. And
no.
There was a good half an hour at least before this podcast putting the world to rights and about video.
Taking names and kicking butt.
If you will.
Yeah. Anyway, for the 4th time now, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all again.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah.